Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's video lecture, and we continue covering the somatic sensory division, special senses. And today we will talk about anatomy of the eye. So vision, but as I said, we'll cover anatomy only. Okay, I'm trying to pick up my pointer, so let me get to the next slide first, and I will pick up my pen. So over here you can see external structure of the eye. So let's start with this picture first. So here's your nose. So that's a medial part, and this is lateral part of your face. Now, superiorly and laterally to your eye, you have lacrimal gland. Lacrimal glands produce tears, and then tears are deposited through excretory ducts and cover the surface of your eye. So that's your tears, and they need to be picked up. So they move inside this opening here and here. Those openings are called lacrimal punctum. Is a name. Then tears move through lacrimal canaliculi, inferior and superior, inside nasolacrimal duct. So superior part of the duct is called a lacrimal sac. Then we have nasolacrimal duct that brings your tears inside your nasal cavity, and the opening is right here, where you have inferior meatus of nasal cavity. So this structure are your nasal conchae. This is middle nasal concha, inferior nasal concha, and underneath the inferior nasal concha, you have inferior meatus, and this is where you have opening of nasolacrimal duct. So you produce a small amount of tears on a daily basis because you need to make the surface of your eyeball wet, protected from bacteria, also wash away some debris or dust from the air. And you don't want to constantly your tears running down your face. That's why you have those ducts to collect these tears and bring it to your nose. Now in this picture, it's a lateral view and some structure, external structure, and some are in sagittal section. So over here you can see a couple muscles. Some of these muscles are familiar to you. This muscle is orbicularis oculi. So remember, this is a circular muscle around your eye, orbicularis oculi. Here muscle right there called levator palpebrae muscle. It elevates your upper eyelid. This structure over here called tarsal plate, and inside you have tarsal gland. So this is your eyelashes, and here's the eyeball. You have these intrinsic muscles that we will cover on the next slide. But your eyeball is covered by membrane called conjunctiva. If it covers your eyelid, so this part over here called palpebral conjunctiva, and the same over here, palpebral conjunctiva, this sac is called conjunctival sac. And then conjunctiva cover your eyeball is called bulbar conjunctiva. So this is also your orbicularis, part of the orbicularis oculi muscle. You can also see lots of fatty tissue. This is your periorbital fat. So here's our eye muscles. We have 6 extraocular muscles. They originate from bones of bony orbit and insert into surface of eyeball. Those muscles move your eye. So they elevate, depress, rotate it medially, laterally. They move them towards contracting muscles, and they innervated by cranial nerve. So let's look at this muscle. Some of them have very nice names that give you pretty much location and structure of the muscle. We have 4 rectus muscles. Now, rectus muscle, rectus, remember, means straight. So fibers runs parallel to the axis. So we have superior rectus. Let's look here. So here's superior rectus, inferior rectus, on the medial side, medial rectus and lateral rectus. So here's, for example, you can see inferior rectus, superior rectus, lateral rectus that was cut, and medial rectus is this part over here. You have also 2 oblique muscles. You have superior oblique, right? So it will be right there, and inferior oblique muscle. So here's your inferior oblique, and here is this muscle over here, superior oblique. Now, superior oblique goes through like little structure on the medial wall called a trochlea. Right? So here's a trochlea. And it's important to remember that we have this trochlea structure because actually nerve that innervates superior oblique is trochlea nerve. So here's your superior oblique, and here's the nerve, trochlea nerve. That is nerve number 4. Most of the muscles are innervated by oculomotor nerve. Oculomotor moves your eyes, eyeball, right? Motor, ocular. So that's the cranial nerve number 3. There's only 2 muscles that are innervated by different nerves. One of them we already mentioned, superior oblique, innervated by trochlea nerve, because it does has, this structure like a little hook, and the muscle goes through this trochlea, and nerve is trochlea nerve. Another muscle is lateral rectus. Now, lateral rectus gonna rotate your eyeball to the lateral side. This is called abduction. And nerve that innervate is abducens nerve. So that nerve number 6. Everything else, medial rectus, superior, inferior rectus, inferior oblique are innervated by cranial nerve number 3. Now, what action are produced by those muscles? With rectus muscles, it's easy. Lateral rectus moves eye laterally. So name tells you direction. Medial rectus, medially. Superior rectus elevates, inferior rectus depresses. Inferior and superior oblique are actually opposite. Inferior oblique gonna elevate, and superior oblique gonna depress your eye. Also, both oblique muscles move your eyeball laterally. Maybe you see this L in word oblique. That should remind you that it moves your eye laterally, and superior and inferior rectus not only elevate and depress your eye, but also move it medially. Right, so that's what we need to remember about those extraocular muscles that move your eyeball. Now let's look at internal anatomy of the eye. The eyeball is covered by 3 layers. We call them tunics. So here is 3 tissue layers, 3 tunics. We start from superficial and go to deep. So superficial is a fibrous tunic, then vascular tunic, and neural tunic. Also, your eyeball is divided into 2 cavities, and division is at the level of your lens. So that's a lens, everything in front of the lens is called anterior cavity or anterior segment. And posterior to lens is posterior cavity or posterior segment. Now this anterior segment, so kind of like up to this point, has fluid that is called aqueous humor. Now, humor in anatomy means fluid and aqueous means watery. So we have watery humor, aqueous humor in anterior cavity, and we have vitreous humor in posterior cavity. So it's shown by kind of this structure. It's a jello consistency of fluid. So it's not that liquid. Again, aqueous humor in anterior cavity and vitreous humor in posterior cavity. What else you can see here? Let's come back to this picture. This picture has lots of details for us to study, but first, let's make sense of those tunics. A fibrous layer on fibrous tunic. Outermost layer made of dense avascular connective tissue, and it's shown here on this picture that fibrous layer has two parts. Anterior part shown in a green color called sclera. Oh, I'm sorry, called cornea. Cornea is transparent anterior 1/6 of fibrous layer. Cornea bends light as it enters the eye. So cornea over here shown in green, because it's transparent, you cannot really see it. What you can see is iris behind it. So that's everything over here covered by cornea. And a posterior region is a pug protective layer that protects and shapes your eyeball, anchors extrinsic eye muscle, and it's called sclera. So the outermost layer made of two parts, sclera and cornea. Sclera is white. If you go to the mirror and look at your eye, you will see a white part. That would be your sclera. And cornea is transparent, so you cannot see it, but it's going to be right in front, anterior to the iris. And iris is a colored part of your eye. Right, so that was fibrous layer. Vascular layer made of three parts. Choroid, shown here in red, supplies blood to the eyeball. Now, when we move anteriorly, we have ciliary body. It's a ring of tissue, so it's actually, the entire ring surrounding the lens, and it has a ciliary zonules or suspensory ligaments that hold lens in a position. So if you have a lens, let me pick up just a regular pen. So here, if you have a lens that's surrounding the lens, you will have your ciliary body. So it's a circular structure, right? So here, right? So that's your ciliary body. And we have ciliary zonules, or those ligaments that hold lens in place. So that look like this. But because you can see only like what section is that? Like coronal section, you cannot see that ciliary body is actually the ring of tissue. And the third part of vascular layer is iris. So iris shown here in the purple color, and this is the colored part of the eye. If you have green eyes, your iris is green. If you have blue eyes, your iris is blue. If you have brown, it's brown, and so on. Now this opening, middle opening, is called pupil, or central opening of the iris. That's the black part of your eye. Right, so vascular layer, choroid, ciliary body, and iris. Now, okay, so let's talk about iris a little bit more. So iris is actually smooth muscle, and not just one, but two muscles. So we have muscle over here and it's circular, sphincter muscle. And another muscle is over here, fibers runs in this direction. This is called dilator muscle. Sphincter pupillae, because that's pupil, so that's black part is your pupil. Sphincter pupillae or pupillae and dilator pupillae. Now you know you can constrict and dilate your pupil, or constrict means you can make your pupil smaller or bigger. Now to do it, you need to contract muscles of your iris. Even to dilate your pupil, you need to contract muscles. To constrict your pupil, you need to contract muscles. So to make your pupil smaller or bigger, you need to contract muscles, but different muscles need to be contracted. If you contract sphincter pupillae muscle, so imagine this opening gets smaller. So you constrict or decrease the pupil size. If you contract dilator pupillae muscle, so look, this area became smaller, that will dilate your pupil or increases pupil size. Right, so here it says iris, two muscles, sphincter and dilator pupillae. And those are smooth muscles, so they are innervated by your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic system controls if your pupil gonna be big or small, right? Autonomic nervous system has two divisions, parasympathetic and sympathetic. Sympathetic is your fight or flight response. Parasympathetic is your rest and digest response. So ask yourself, when do I want my pupil to be large? When I'm relaxing or when I'm under stress? Well, the answer would be when you under stress, because to dilate your, why you dilate your pupil? To allow more light in so you can see better. When you're under stress, when you're in a dangerous situation, you want more light entering your eye. So during sympathetic activities, your dilator muscle will contract and pupil get bigger. The opening increases. When you're relaxing, then your sphincter muscle contract and your pupil decreases in size. Okay, so now next layer is sensory layer. Now the sensory layer is actually made of neural layer and pigmented layer. Now, pigmented is superficial and neural is deep. So it's both shown here in a yellow color, but if you put this pigmented layer or pigmented epithelium, it will be, I mean, not deep, external layer, sorry. So external layer over here, so it's more superficial. And then close to the, inside you, close to inner part of your eyeball, you will have your neural layer, right? So we have pigmented layer, that would be right there, and a neural layer that will be right here. Right, so sensory layer, right? And sensory layer is made of pigmented layer and your neural layer, that is your retina. Now inside your retina, you have receptors that detect light. What else we can actually see in our retina? So this picture is taken by ophthalmoscope. So, like this little tube that they put close to your eye and look to the back side of your eye. So you can see retina, you can see lots of blood vessels here. Now this area is called optic disc, and this is the beginning of optic nerve. You call it blind spot. You do not have receptors here. So when light strikes this area, you cannot see the object, right? Because how we see object, light is reflected from the object. If light is reflected from the object and falls into this area, that's your blind spot, you cannot see the object. Similar what you have in your car, right? You have a blind spot in your mirror, right? So that's the beginning of optic nerve, optic disc, blind spot. And here's another area here called macula. Macula in anatomy just means spot, and inside you have fovea centralis. Fovea is for highest visual acuity. So the sharpest vision happens in the fovea region, and there is no vision in your optic disc. So optic disc lack photoreceptors, site where the optic nerve leaves the eye. And fovea has highest visual acuity. Now let's look at structure of retina. Over here you can see histology of the retina. So here's our superficial layer. So we have sclera, that is fibrous layer. Then we have choroid, that is vascular layer. And here our sensory layer, including pigment epithelium. You see this dark line over here, that's your pigment epithelium. And then all part over here is your retina. Now here's a cartoon picture. You have pigment epithelium, then photoreceptors, rods and cones. Now photoreceptor synapse with bipolar cells. So here's bipolar cells. You have nucleus and two processes. Bipolar cells synapse with ganglion cells. So here's the ganglion cells. And axons of ganglion cells make your optic nerve. Right, so let's look at the histology. So again, you have sclera, you have choroid, you have pigment epithelium. Over here, you have your rods and cones. And this is the outer segment. And those are nuclei. Those are nuclei of bipolar cells. So this one is this area right here, where you have the nuclei. And those are nuclei of ganglion cells. So this area is right here. And here's our nerve fibers. I'm sorry, this is already vitreous humor. So when I told you retina just goes up to this point. And those are nerve fibers or axons of ganglion cells or your optic nerve. There is two other structures you need to know, is this pink part and this pink part. Now, both these parts called plexiform. Only this is outer plexiform and this is inner plexiform. And in the plexiform, you have the synapses. So here in the inner plexiform is a synapse between bipolar cells and ganglion cells. And over here in outer plexiform, you have synapse between photoreceptors and bipolar cells. So retina is structured of several layers, contains nerve cells, photoreceptors, pigmentation, and blood vessels. Two types of photoreceptors, rods that contains pigment called rhodopsin, and cones contains opsin. Now, if you look at this picture, those are rods and those are cones. Cones, we have three of them, red cones, green and blue cones. Red cones accounts of 60% of all cones, green 30% and blue 10%. Now, let's get over here first. So rods are sensitive in a low light. So when it's early morning or evening, when you don't have this bright sunlight, then your rods are active. They activated by a low intensity light. So let me try to find one. Pen. And cones are sensitive in the brighter conditions. So you know that your visible light has a different wavelengths. Right, so you have like violet, you have blue, you have green, yellow, that's a cyan, red, right? So you, and this is the wavelength. So go further from zero, the longer the waves are, right? So, so different wavelengths, so waves of different lengths activate different cones, right? So like this green color light activates your green cones, a red color light activates your red cones, and violet and blue color light activates your blue cones. And then different degree of activation give you all other colors, similar to your printer. When you have a printer, you usually buy only basic colors. You buy blue, green, red color, and then you can pretty much create all the colors that your eye can see using like different composition of these colors. So that's similar to your eye. You only have 3 different cones, but you can use them to see all spectrum of colors. Now, some animals, for example, if you have a dog, little puppy, they do not have cones. Their retina only has rods. That means they cannot see colors, right? And this is what it says. Wavelength of light determines the color. You do have a blood supply, obviously, of your eye. Now let's look at those blood vessels. So here's your internal carotid artery. It's a branch from common carotid. And you have ophthalmic artery from internal carotid that will give this central renal artery shown over here. And other branches are posterior ciliary arteries that give you a blood vessels of choroid, right? So we have central retinal artery and we have choroid. Choroid supplies the outer third photoreceptors, and center artery and vein of the retina supplies the inner 2/3 of the eyeball. So if you go back to this picture here, that's our central artery over here of the retina. All right, so that's our central retinal artery. So we already discussed this one. Okay, now focusing for far and close vision. So when you go to your doctor and they check your visual acuity and they tell you you have 20/20 vision, that means that you have normal eye. Normal eye is called emmetropic eye. That means you can see certain letters in a distance of 20 feet. Now, why it's important? Because 20 feet is called far point of vision. It's a distance beyond which no change in lens shape is needed for focusing. So when you're looking at something that is 20 feet and further away from you, you don't need any accommodation to your lens because you can change shape of the lens. So look over here, this lens is more round and this lens is more flat. But you need to change the shape of the lens only when you're looking at something that is closer than 20 feet from you, right? So far point of vision is 20 feet for normal emmetropic eye, and no changes in the lens shape is needed. Now, what is accommodation? Accommodation is changing the lens shape by your ciliary muscle to increase refractory power. So if you look at the picture over here, and this is your near vision, for near vision, you need your lens to be more round. right? So if the lens is more round, so it's more curved, then you reflect, you bend, right, your light more, and it's allow you to focus light on the retina. So just remember, for near vision, you need a more rounded lens. For distance vision, you need your lens to be flatter. Now, how to do it, right? So this is your ciliary body, and ciliary body is your ciliary muscle. Remember, we have these ciliary zonules or suspensory ligament. So when your ciliary muscle is contracted, and it's a sphincter muscle. So you see when kind of opening over here, that's the opening, became smaller, then suspensory ligaments are loose. If they are loose, they don't pull on your lens, and your lens is rounded. So for close vision or for near vision, you need to, do your work. You need to contract your ciliary muscles. So you contract your ciliary muscles, and your lens became more rounded, so you can focus on the close objects. When you're looking at more distant objects, right, then your ciliary muscle is relaxed. You see, when it's relaxed, look at this opening. It's became bigger, because when you have circular muscle, right, so if this is your circular muscle, if you contract this muscle, you increase the opening. If you relax, you I'm sorry. Okay, so here's your, let me pick up normal pen. Okay, so here's your circular muscle, right? If you contract this muscle, so here's several fibers. What do you think happened? Muscles get shorter. So here's gonna be your muscle, contracted muscle. And this opening gets smaller. So when that's what happened over here. When this opening gets smaller, those suspensory ligaments, they are loose. You don't pull on or don't pull on the lens. But when you relax, as you have relaxed over here, your opening is larger. Now you pull on the suspensory ligaments. Suspensory ligaments are attached to lens, and they pull on lens, making lens flat. Right? So actually, but muscle is relaxed. So for distance vision, it's kind of easier. You don't need to contract your muscle. For close vision, you need to contract the muscle. That makes sense? Right? And for near vision, you need your lens to be rounded. And for distant vision, you need your lens to be more flat. But that's only applied when you're looking at something that is closer than 20 feet to you. When it's away, further away than 20 feet, you don't need any accommodation. So your muscles are actually relaxed, and your lens as flat as they can be, right? So, and then when object moves close to you, right, from 20 feet to 18 feet, 16 feet, 17 feet, right? So object get closer to you, you need to make your lenses more and more round, right? So when object is 16 feet away from you, your lens need to be round. So you need to contract the ciliary muscle. When it moves to 15 feet to you, you need to make them even more round. So you contract your muscle more. So near point of vision is determined by the maximum bulge the lens can achieve. So when your muscle is fully, let's say contracted, those suspensory ligaments do not pull on your lens. So your lens is as round as it can be. That means you cannot see anything closer than this near point. That's the objects that at near point of vision. Now, when we get older, so we can have ametropic eye, like, thanks goodness I have, right? I'm thankful for that to my parents. So I have normal vision, emmetropic eye. But now when I'm getting older, I lost accommodation. And this condition is called presbyopia. It's loss of accommodation over age 50. And that happened because the lenses are not that, they hardened, they became hard. So you cannot, even you contract the muscle, relax the muscle, but because your lenses itself changing their physical properties, and chemical properties partially, right? They cannot be as pliable as they were before. They became stiff and hard and tough, and you cannot achieve this nice roundness. That's why people with presbyopia, when they read stuff, they keep their reading material kind of further away from their eyes. They cannot see close objects, right? That's what presbyopia is. Let's look at some other problems with refraction of light. So on this picture, you guys see emmetropic eye or normal eye. So here's your light entering your eyeball. So you bend it or refract it a little bit at the area of the cornea. So cornea gonna refract the light, but most of the refraction will be done by lenses. And what lenses do, they need to focus this light on a focal plate of your retina. So the light need to be focused on your retina. So focal point is on retina. That's emmetropic eye. Now we have people that have myopia or nearsightedness and hyperopia, that is farsightedness. Now, how exactly this happened? And we will get back to astigmatism in a minute. So let's look at the picture on next slide. So usually myopic eye or nearsightedness happen when eyeball is too long. So you have, your lens, and this is, the maximum curve that it can achieve. And here's your light. But now, because your eyeball is too long, the light focuses in front of retina. Now, if it focuses in front of retina, you need to bend it less. That's why you use concave lenses. Now, let's see what happens with concave lenses. First, you reflect light away, those rays of light away from the focus point. So they, when they strike your lens now reflect them and focus on the retina. Right? So, so you see how those rays shown straight, and your concave lenses, they diverge, not converge, but diverge those lights, and then your lenses focus it right on the retina where it's need to be. So myopic eye when eyeball is too long. Hyperotic eye when eyeball is too short and the focus is behind retina, then you need convex lenses, so you bend your light more. So you see how you help your lens to bend this light. So you bend them here, so you converge them before they strike your lenses, and that allow you to focus on the retina, right? Okay, so that's our myopic and hyperopic eye. And astigmatism caused by unequal curvatures in different parts of the cornea or lens. And, want to remind you that cornea is this part, clear part in front of the lens. Astigmatism can be corrected with cylindrically ground lenses, cornea implants, or laser procedures. Right, so that's some problems with reflection. So we cover myopia, nearsightedness, hyperopia, farsightedness, astigmatism, unequal curvature of the cornea or lens. And we also looked previously on presbyopia. Now, presbyopia is similar in the symptoms to hyperopia. However, the difference is hyperopia is caused by a short eyeball, when presbyopia, the eyeball is normal size and shape, right? But the problem are your lenses. Lenses with age, when we age, our lenses became stiff and we cannot achieve the proper curve of the lens, right? Okay, so I think that's it for this lecture. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope it was helpful, and I will record the last video about physiology part of this chapter. Okay, have a nice day. I hope to, well, I cannot see you, but I hope to, well, how to say it? Well, I hope you will watch my next video, right? Thank you so much. Okay, bye, everybody.